Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke reaching out to you, saying hi. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. No ops, no IT ops, no management stuff, no theological or relational discussions or history or future or stuff like that. Instead, today we're going to have a little bit of fun with a classic, well-designed piece of equipment. Now, if you know anything about me, it's never about the manufacturer. HP, Compaq, Dell, whoever, Lenovo, IBM, and so on. It's not about the manufacturer. It's the make and model. Every one of them make crap. Every one of them make good stuff. It's knowing how to spot it. And today we're going to talk about this very impressive machine design called the T3600. It's a Dell series precision system, and it is just really well built. Now, let me give you a quick tour here real fast. As you can see here, this is the Dell, and it's got the USB outputs, power connectors, aux, and all that, the multimedia kit set, DVD, and it has this very specialized air saturation effect with a small filter built into it, and of course the title. Now over and above is a really tight, well-managed structure of how you want everything you want to have in a good place. Heat is well distributed. The transparency on the back for convection is really great. Card space is excellent. It has the full edge connection in point here, SSD drives, or SAS drives, whatever you need. Very good compartmentalization and a non-compliant standard PC power supply, but the way they did it was smart and intelligent by staging it in such a way so it was really out of the way. It wasn't a heat generator like many power supplies are. They really suck this out and get it out of the equation pretty well. That's an impressive thing. So with that being said, some of the things about this chassis that come to mind when you look at it is its nature. So first things first, it has, let me go ahead and adjust this screen here for you. It has what's called no shake. No shake means that when you shake the chassis, it's not flimsy. It's got corrugation and control on its aluminum framing structure and its tin aluminum combination, and it really gives it a strong sense of grip. It has a great grip handle in the front too, which is right here. You grab it, it takes the beating, it's strong, it's durable, it's just good, well-designed configuration. And on the back side, you have the same kind of back handle here as well. You can grab that really easy. And as you can see below down here, access to the panel ways, easy, toolless, setup for your cards. It's just streamlined really well. Now there's 2.0 USB on this. That's okay for baseline, but you can always put a 3.0 in if you wanted to have that as well. And it's based on the operating system, so if you have Windows 10, you'll be able to run that natively USB 3.0 wise. So with that being the case, the other neat thing that's really cool is the power supply is removable, which is this release lock here down at the bottom, and that will pull this out, which I'm not going to pull out right now, but it will allow you to do quick rapid exchanges. That's the nice thing about that power supply setup, is because it comes right out. And when it comes out, you can put in another one and smack it right back in, and it's ready to go. Let me go ahead and see. Yeah, you see like that? See, it's completely modulated. It's got a card edge like a server, and this is a higher end system. But look at that. I mean, that's just too smart. So this is where people sometimes get very good at what they do, or they get the funding to build their stations out the way they want to. And that's really a nice thing which will be going on about this. Now I'm going to set this guy down, and we're going to take a look at the actual heat controller. And there's something really important about this heat controller that I noticed immediately. It's called a pivot position. Hang on a second here. So it's got a pivot, 2 screws right down here, and then back here it has the base part which it snaps into place. So there are no screws in the back area. It's basically tilt it in, slap it down, put the lock switches down, and we'll expose this. This is a Xeon, I believe, and take a look at it. Okay, so yes, it is a Xeon. It's a big one, and it's probably 5700 or 5600. I have to check when I boot it up. I bought this in a Hamvention in Dayton, Ohio. We have them here, the biggest one in the world actually, and these guys didn't know what they had when they were trying to sell this stuff, and I said, well, I'll buy that for 50 bucks. Yeah, I got this system for 50 bucks. So these are, it can go up to 64 gigs of RAM. Currently it has 32, and it's a fairly large processor stack. That adhesive is gone. I'm gonna have to probably put some more on it. Got a good old standard decent video card that will easily support the requirements I need. And if you look back into here, hand access is really easy. You can get in there and you can do your thing, and you can maneuver around, and you know it's not about spacing. So that's the key detail. And if you go here, you can pull the release lock, and this pulls the whole tray out, and it hinges out just like the processor stack does. And you can make changes. You put a tape drive in there if you wanted. That's kind of old school, but needless to say. Is that in? I think it is. Yep. All right. So at that point stage, as you can see, it's fairly manageable. You still have one Molex out point, and you have an SSD power connector here as well, or a standard SATA connection interface as well. And you can spread those out by using a Molex spreader or a SATA drive connector head, and get yourselves more connection points if you want. So what is a classic machine like this good for? Well, for any child who is of the age of, let's say, 8 years old to 20, this is a very good system. It's a Xeon. It's got a 2.0 PCIe, but it has a distributed bus with PCI right here, so it has some legacy capacity. Great first time server. Great to cut your teeth on. It could easily be put into a Proxmox mix with multiple versions of this chassis. Power supply is really nice. It's gated steel. It's got a steel housing, which is this outer shell. It's got the standard industry fan there. It's a heat pipe, and with the coil sets out here, and it's a 4x set heat pipe, and it does hinge itself in place pretty nicely. That's good. I am going to pull that processor out and clean it up and take a look at what's on it. So give me a second. Okay, oops, sorry about that. That was supposed to happen. Okay, you can see the processor here. And I've got my chemical mixes here. I've got, very easy, it's just this is chemical 1, this is chemical 2. And I will be placing that compound on the processor. And I'm also going to put it on the heatsink, because frankly, if you don't do both, you're not doing yourself justice. And use your Q-tip to mix it around to start to loosen it up. Now the heatsink's a little bit easier to manage when it comes to cleaning, because it doesn't, it's kind of easy in the sense of not making a mess. The real challenge is the processor. When you're trying to get in here and loosen all this up, you want to make sure that you don't go overboard and end up coating the underside of the processor stack itself. If that happens, you just basically dab it to get some of the liquid content off, and that way you'll be able to get this in a fairly manageable format. Now I'm going to get an edge knife, and as you can see here, I'm going to use the edge knife to loosen this stuff up. It's basically an X-Acto knife with a chisel head blade. Works really well on getting things cleaned up. So with that being the case, I can start to rub off the surface here. Okay, and we have the processor here. It's looking a lot better. Gotta put my glasses on. It's hard to read such fine print. But it is a Xeon series E5 1603. Okay, so this is an E5 1603, 2.8 gigahertz. This is a decent machine with a decent processor. Absolutely an excellent starter system. You really can't go wrong with the design of the chassis itself, but the processor is very good as well. Now I'm going to put the processor back in its home. Because I don't need to do any more with it. But before I do that, unfortunately, I see something here I have to tackle as well. Is that I'll make sure all that stuff is gone. Is you need to apply number 2, which is your Arctic Clean increment 2. And what it will do is it will allow you to get residue off that could act as a insulator effect on the chassis. And that's where the contact of the two meet, the CPU and the heatsink. Once that is applied, now you've got yourself a clean i5 or E5 series processor ready to go. Okay. Alright, so the processor is now in its home. Now I'm going to go here to this guy next, and I'm going to strip off its excess, and there's quite a bit actually. But it loosens up pretty well. Now some people use window scrapers to do this work. And that stuff's pretty well embedded in there. Might require a couple of go-arounds just to make sure it's totally loosened up. So let's do that. Let's put a little bit more on this, because if the basically what you've got is a TED, a thermoelectric diode module that is built into the processor itself. That's the metal plate that sits on top of the CPU. Sometimes it's just simply a metal plate, but you will find from time to time that TEDs are deployed to help heat pump. That's what a TE does. It's basically a heat pump. Pushes the heat out of the processor to keep it as cool as possible. And by doing that, the heat pump functionality allows for quite a bit to happen. Alright. Should clean this up now. Should clean it up nicely. Oh yeah. Now the copper is starting to shine. You will also notice that there's a residue effect on this heatsink. That residue effect is kind of like a smearing. That's what it looks like to me. If you go in there and you get your secondary coating in there, this is part of your cleaning process. And you basically start spreading this around. Careful not to let it get too out of control, because it can drip back down on your processor and you don't want that. Nope. Oh yeah, it's cleaning this up good. Okay. So now we're in good shape. The copper is bright, which is what you want. That's where the cleaners come into play. They expose and deoxify the surface area of the copper so that it's more functional. Now what you want to do is you want to flip it upside down, or I should say upside up, and make sure there is no leakage or drippage to keep that platform clean. I also take the opportunity to wipe out any excess whatever, dust and so on. And hang on a second. No, I'll do that later. Okay, so now hang on. Okay, so now we've got ourselves the open bay of the ZIF socket. This is an E5 series Xeon support ZIF socket. Now we have a really good rated class thermal paste, which we're going to use on this processor. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and put this out like this and put a dot about the size of a dime in the middle. That's all you need. Some people say do an X. Some people say do wedges, do dots. No. Put it dead center, and when this comes together, it will work correctly because it will spread out evenly across the board. And that is what you want. You want center heat out. In other words, expand outwards from the middle of the point. Now we're securing the socket. Got that done. Okay, now we're ready to place the heatsink into its home. But first we're going to put the connector on it. Okay. Now you put 4 turns and that will hold it in place. 4 turns, 4 turns, 4 turns, 4 turns, and I keep doing that until it's done. So stand by for a second. Okay, we've got it now set up. Now I put this card in, so it should be functional and compatible. It's a step down from a high-end video card. But you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out and put a different card in its place. I'm going to put this guy on in its place. And don't worry, with machines like this, it doesn't need to have an ultra high performance setup. And then we'll put the spacer in. Now, one important detail that needs to be understood here is that I showed you about the airflow on this, right? And the uniform airflow in the back, that checkered look, like you can see here. See the checkered pattern. That's important because that produces what we call a even flow. Now, the CPU has its own fan which pumps it out directly. That's good. It's not what's called an indirect fan setup, where you have a fan on the front of the chassis and then it's got like plastics to guide the airflows through certain areas like RAM and CPU and all that. These areas actually are fairly independent. They're actually able to do exactly what they need to do, and that means that heat is well managed. Very important when it comes to Xeons specifically. So this chassis is actually very efficient in its design. Now I need to get this right here. Now the one thing that is not efficient about these models is that if they're not properly sealed, their entire process of handling heat very quickly goes south. So now we've got our module here. It is built and it is in place, and we're going to power it up next. So let's take a look at this guy all by itself. As you can see, here's the back area and this easy side access panel that lets you in and out fairly easily. And then the front panel, which I think this is the best way to display this unit, is up as a tower and just have it set up. And this will give us a really cool kudos feel that our machine's really getting good airflow and well controlled. Okay, so now as you can see, we've got our setup. Now when you put in the power cable down here on the bottom, you will get a response when you put it in, and it will light up. As you can see, the green light there, and then it will eventually go away. That's basically what we call post-diagnostic looping. That is normal. That is nothing to worry about. And over here, we'll hit the power button. I like to check the drive to make sure it works. There's nothing in it. Okay, good. Now we're going to watch to see if this unit will post. I really haven't tested this unit out, so oh, there it is. It's posting. Let's go into F12. It's coming into an environment. Okay. Asking what do you want to do. We're in legacy mode. Let's go into the BIOS first to check assets. Okay, this is a very typical Dell operating environment for BIOS. Alright. We have a classification, 2 100 gig drives. That's fine. There's our memory, our sequence, date is holding, so the CMOS chip is good. Very important detail. Check your integration, serial ports, hot exchange, it's set. SATA pairing is enabled for RAID. Drive sets, smart reporting, USB is yes, that's correct. And you notice here it says enable USB 3 ports. That's not USB 3. That's a mistake that people make. It only has 2.0. Optional boots, PCI bus configurations are set to 64. That's okay, that's fine. MMIO is set for small footprint. Hard drive fans. For some reason they're not. That's right, they're not because they're not spinning hard drives. Audio is functional. Video, primary video set in auto. Security not required. Performance metricing multi-core set all. Speed stepping, C-state, and cache prefess are all enabled. That's good. BIOS post for power management. Post set. Recovery is active. Auto state time, deep sleep control. Fan control is set to auto. You can, under fan control, set it to low, and that will keep the noise down, or you can put a better quality fan in, is what I would do, and still get the RPMs you want. Virtualization is enabled. VT Direct IO is good. Maintenance Windows, service tag assets, and all that good stuff. Well, I think we're good, so we're going to exit. And we're going to allow it to boot. All right. Now, memory served me correct, it had Windows 10 on it, on this environment. I'll look at upgrading to Windows 11 for grins to see how well it handles a non-compliant upgrade. Non-compliant upgrades mean that you're not using Microsoft's forced edict of making you do a bunch of unnecessary stuff and to trick you into buying new hardware, because that's part of their game. To support the vendors, they want the vendors to continuously sell new hardware, but they can't say they can't be compatible. They just don't necessarily say it out loud, really loud. So that's a good thing, right? So we're logging in here. Typical crap screen. All right. While it's doing that, let's take a look at the system. And it is on Windows 11. And we're going to initiate, go ahead and let this thing. But at this point in stage, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and take this down, and I'll give it the proper amount of time that it needs to do this correctly, so it's up to date in the latest releases and so on. So with this being said, I wanted to introduce the Dell Dimension style structure, design, implementation of this 3600 unit, and just kind of get you a feel of how well this particular piece of hardware works. Really great design, like I said. Easy to secure, easy to work with, not complicated. And like I said at the beginning, it is about the capacity of the system itself. It's not about the manufacturer. Yes, the manufacturer is the foundation that built it, but they make a lot of stuff that's not so great. And every once in a while you get a gem in the rough, and you can turn it into something really sizable. And I definitely recommend that this particular model, the 3600, is excellent. If you can get it super cheap out there, because they're expired, they're several years old, get it. Beef it up. It can do quite a bit for you. Great server platform. If you get a few of these at great Proxmox environments, it's just too easy. So this is Brad signing off. God bless. I hope you guys have a great week, and you take care. Bye-bye.